Crew Logbook Entry 21st January. I woke up abruptly, cold sweat running down my neck, my sheets drenched. I must have been going in and out of a feverish delirium the whole night. In my tossing and turning, I'd caused my own analog alarms to jingle, and, light sleeper that I am, it dragged me out of the ragged nightmares that had me in my grip. A fierce deja vu lingered with me from it, and with it burning questions. I checked myself all over. Not a thing amiss. The contraption still set in place, my skin half covering the metal deeply plunged into what makes me, and for all intents and purposes, the feverishness serves no logical purpose. I must calm my nerves. This is unbecoming. Yes, I must have lost my mind, yet all that remains is the words I muttered to myself in my dream, staring down the end. Never let go. Faces melting into one another in undisturbed screams, the depths of Europa thick with blood and bones, hands clawing at me to drag me under, and the only hand reaching out my own. As the fingers intersect, its glamour becomes undone. It was a wicked beast. Yes, it was. A monster wearing human skin. Underneath, strips of flesh and bone like seaweed grew into the ocean side. Spines undulating like some exotic parasite between calcified scales. Faceplates opening in 4 quadrants into cannons and teeth, and vivid eye like some distant black hole threatening to devour me. The clattering of coal gun fire she threatens me in her sheer existence. Flesh growing further still, and I try to break free, but many already start to become the one. Her never let go. She repeats as if it had some profound meaning. I scream at her, my lungs filling with sickly sweet blood. Never let go. She screams now impatiently, as if I'd already failed some simple task a child should be able to complete. I'm not in the habit of giving up, especially not in the face of a wretched thing like this. I mutter in between, grasping for air, but the word is none to be found. Someone managing a whole sentence. Dream logic, I presume. Guns grill at me with some sort of satisfaction, and hundreds of claw hands skitter across the surface of stone to drag itself and an eye across them towards the depths. The worst of it was that it did not even feel hostile. Whatever was left of this poor thing that thought itself to be me seemed to have some profound task that involved myself, and while I'm an avid hater of taking a reactive stance, in this instance I was forced into the role of the observer. When before me was a dance of stone and pressure. Words fail to describe what I witnessed. Self-satisfied, the she-thing states again, never let go, and subsequently does not fulfill her own statement and lets go. I struggled against the current, and as I was tossed and turned into the not-so-gentle embrace of the abyss and crushing gravity of whatever phenomena it called its own, I had awoken. I do not believe in hidden meanings, but my premonitions that had come to me have proven right more than once. It is evident that something is amiss, and I do not simply know what yet. Dissecting the source, at least for now, no higher purpose. Scientific progress needs to be documented, and as the doctor is an early riser, I must match him to conduct the experiments we had agreed upon before any of the crew wakes or returns. But first, some cold compressions and a good helping of fresh water have helped fight down the feverishness and cemented the simple truths of here and now. Binsmouth station is quiet during these hours, but not for long. A clock proudly proclaims that I haven't lost my habit of being too early to every appointment yet. The doctor, carrying a crate with medical supplies, just in case, greets me with a wave and a smile, which I, of course, promptly returned. I do not know how I feel about handling over a caliber of revolver capable of killing a fresher clean in one shot. It has served me well, many a time, only to stare down the barrel with eager anticipation. Lunacy. Yes, calculated lunacy. This has to be a stress test, and I've eaten enough gunfire in my time to know that a shot from this to the chest will render myself at death's door. The doctor doesn't hesitate. Never do I, frankly, if given a task. I see a muscle flash before I feel the impact. There's no mercy of it hitting a foot as I've done with a clown. It's almost punctured, lying. It would have destroyed my chest. I gurgle, grasp, cough, a reel from the impact, but less than a minute, the wound has closed and expelled the foreign metal piece wedged into the chitin. I was bleeding profusely. The pain was hellish, but isolated. The doctor documented every moment passing as my hand tried to grip in response to where my handgun would be if it wasn't in his hand. After a minute, the shot was already a distant memory. No scar, no deeper permanent damage, only the blood loss needing a bit more time to recover. I could tell by the lightheadedness and the doctor's confirmation. Frankly, that should have been it. But I insist that we take it to the extreme. I need to know just how durable I am now, and the more data we have preemptively, the better for the emergencies. The doctor, seemingly happy with my willingness to proceed, mentions there could be an opportunity to potentially dissect the impact of extreme stress on the splicer. Before I could even utter another word, another bullet hit my cranium. The doctor reloads, and as the ring leaves my ears, I just feel a seething rage and wish to leap forward and sink my teeth into the doctor. A ghastly notion. A prudent decision of the doctor then that he fired a second shot into the rapidly closing gashing wound. I remember falling to my knees, everything spinning, the heaviness in my head and my body unable to comply with my still too human mindset of, I should be dead after this. No, a normal person would think that they are. But if there's one thing I'm known for, it's that I refuse to give in, even if all common decency and sense of self-preservation should demand that the situation is utterly hopeless. Never let go. I'll fight like hell against the Grim Reaper's claws. My vision was blurry, the doctor clearly noting things down, with surprise on his face, he was still somewhat cognitive in there. Yes, I remember both, and how in all of this absurdity, I hope I mustered a grin at him. After another excruciating minute fighting for consciousness, he put me out of my misery with another 2 bullets. I died that day, and yet I'm writing here. I know why now. Insanity is to believe in the linearity of time. This much has become clear. It appears the doctor was somewhat concerned about myself forgetting something he insisted I already knew, muttering something about short-term memory always being troublesome. First of all, the results of the stress test were satisfactory, but they weren't the only research papers to consult with my morning tea with rum. The doctor, sliding a second set of papers into the documentation, gave him much too pensive gaze for what we had achieved yesterday and proven today. I understand why now. I'd forgotten it. All these premonitions, these nightmares, at least most of them, were the conjuring of experience, foresight, and a good helping of paranoia. No. Each death I dreamed of was tangible, it was real. I died that day, I died today, and yet I live! I never questioned why some of the doctor's equipment was off limits. Most of it I could ask for access, but it's a sort of gentleman's agreement. He doesn't question where I get the funding from, I don't question what's inside the cabinet. The gravity anomaly has a profound effect on the way time behaves. I found some research papers on it before. I've even talked to people the doctor pointed out that required my attention at set locations. They were all attempts of his to spurn my memory, or make me realize myself, not to mention to gather information on it. But I simply always forgot every death and toll. How many temporal resets have transpired by now? Yesterday, even before the breakthrough, I had died on that station. The proof was there, and this was just a snippet of the truth that awaits FBI. To think that some god ordained what is and isn't, and when it all is, I spit at it. No, if this was all possible, then frankly, there's nothing more divine than the willpower to carry on in spite of it. In spite of whatever alien creature or phenomenon thinks itself above consequence, whether it be the Jovian radiation, the aliens once home to these oceans that worship Jupiter, the abyss awaiting its next meal. Hear my proclamation. None shall take me, for I am the Lord Captain, and I will not give in. I've heard once that human determination is like a cockroach, needlessly resilient and unwilling to quit. Of course, also prolific in its spreading. We are a pest, but damn it all, our extermination will not be successful by the hostile hand of time. We shall bend and break her to our will and dominion. I will abandon all to reach our goal. I promise this, and I told the doctor the same. Only once the last star has met its end will I surrender to the unfeeling cosmos. I abandon all that makes me human if it means just a morsel of progress. I'd argue I'm quite sane and bad. Our time is a resource that must be exploited and utilized to its fullest extent. It did still take me a good hour or so to return a semblance of sanity. As per the doctor, one of my better times to take it in. The secret must die with me every time a ship finds her end, and it becomes inevitable that we have failed. But remember now, I'm no longer treated as apparitions. The first step is to not surrender myself to the fear of death, but make it a tool in my hands. Fear is useful when it's controlled. Measured dog on a leash, and I'll panic. Besides, the doctor still needs more data on momentary blightening of the genetic material. Apparently, extended brain death causes genetic decay. We spend the entire morning gathering further data, pushing me to the edge and beyond, once, twice over, for the sake of it. And yes, again, his theorems stand true. As long as there's an ample supply of fresh, suitable genetic data, he can treat the damaged strength of RNA. Which means that in all circumstances a full temporal reset will be required, and whatever clones he has of himself will be able to carry on my work when I find a non-mission critical demise. Hopefully there will be few and far in between, but not everything is perfectly avoidable. By noon we had put an end to our scientific work, as with the ringing of the station clocks I knew our company was swift to return. Our technician is back, as is my lovely chief engineer. He had spent time away to look further into robotics and constructed a schemata for a DDD, Defense Drone Diana class. Considering the last incident aboard, I cannot blame him for wanting more means of personal defense, and frankly, I'm all for it. I immediately bought out station's copper supply and made note to put copper on our restock at all times list. If we can add unthinking, unfeeling drones into our repertoire to assist with the dispatching of threats, it will make the upcoming missions all the safer, but I have my concerns for their durability. Regrettably, I write this now from a point of experiencing part of the day again. I've made myself, perhaps silly, habit of documenting these incidents, even if my prior beliefs before today were ill-placed. It would feel wrong to not document all of my escapades and deaths. To regain copper supply, I charge our next route to a separatist mining station. We may not be in good terms with them, but they are the closest mining hub on our way. Since I haven't heard from my correspondents yet, and the coalition set up a kill contract for a runaway station taken by extremists of the cold, we will make the detour first before heading to the mining station. On our first try, we never made it even to the second station. Maybe half a kilometer from the station, we were rushed by freshers. With everyone distracted, we weren't quick enough on the guns. Rapidly sinking and not wanting a repeat of everyone getting torn apart, I grabbed my pack suit and a HMG, turning on autopilot to take down the stragglers neither chain gun nor railgun could reach. By my miscalculation, I assumed that we hadn't hit the abyss yet, and our plummet wasn't too fast as that I would be lost in the current. Engaging the airlock, I took down the first. The rest of the crew is scrambling to make repairs. With horror then, a second bone thresher hits the hull and the impact throws me back and against the metal. Briefly stunned, I'm tossed outside of the safety of the ship, which is rapidly descending away from me. The threshers are all dead, but I'm now alone and without radio to the crew. If it wasn't for the genetic enhancement, I wouldn't even have dreamed of trying to make it back to the violent assault. But how to put it? I'm not of a habit of knowing my place in the cosmos being one of giving up. I swim. I have no spare oxygen tank besides the one in my breather, and the ship is long out of sight. Crackles on the radio gave away panic. Why, I did not know yet at the time. Then I see her. Awfully similar to her from my dreams, arm-like tendrils crowning them already to rend ship hulls apart. Unblinking, unfeeling eyes in the dark. A body of a serpent dragging itself through the water with some grim grace. If we could somehow harvest the potential of the abyss, it is sure. My fascination obsessions put to an immediate stop as its head snapped from the direction of the ship to me. Yes, a hand reaches out, but it is no hand at all. It is the tendril protrusions tasting the waters for movement, and I am a moving target. Before I can even pull the trigger, it rushes at me and closes its mouth around me in one big gulp. But I held on to one of its feelers. Never let go, right? Causing it to wedge its own sensitive organ between the teeth the size of a ray gun harpoon, and me clinging for dear life onto it. I draw my hand cannon and shoot its maw. knocking a single tooth loose and causing its first attempt to swallow me to fail. By the time I got out, I had radio back. We were deep in the abyss, as if a Charybdis, as I would soon learn to call it, wasn't proving enough. I lured them off my position and, rearming myself, I take aim. And, again, despite all the advancements, despite all my determination, I'm swallowed. Again, but this time not whole. I rip myself loose, adrenaline keeping me conscious as my arm comes off in a nasty tear pop. Thankfully, the wound starts closing as fast as it came to be, but nowhere fast enough, and the pain remains. Now, holding the HMG fairly loose, I'm pulling the trigger, and get hit by a C4 loaded rail cannon from my own bloody ship. And all this mess, they fail to see me still holding on, fighting on. I remember the impact. I remember it tearing me apart, there being little left of my torso, and yet my body refused to give in. I felt the first shells of the unfeeling dart clawing at the edge of my side. A second impact. The Charybdis was still reeling. The second rail cannon also hit me point blank. I'm torn apart. The last thoughts I was able to muster in delirious adrenaline-infused rage were these. If it takes both rail cannon shells, the abyss of the abyss, to put an end to me, I like my odds of success to this expedition. It's noon and the crew is about to return. Second try. I now know the location of the fresher ambush. This will not transpire again, and that itch is back. Perhaps an after effect of the body remembering adrenaline of near death would explain it, as well as my bouts of sudden aggression I can barely fight down. Something to consult the good doctor about. Very well. The bot is constructed again. I congratulate the chief engineer for the marvel, but it feels more distant, more hollow, like working through a checklist. Is this what the good doctor has been experiencing so far? How infuriating it must have been. Or was it clinical work? I should ask him in a quiet moment over a bottle of fine rum. We make it past the ambush. Armed with nuclear sonar depth charges, I'm able to draw them away first, and second give us room to fire. We still plummeted, but only one of them made it through, which my trusty hand cannon saw dispatched. Localized ice broke or fall into the depths. I remembered the ice view, which could be strategically abused. The rest was somewhat uneventful. A few Morlocks messed with my sensors, but they didn't even break through the hulls. Hammerheads were a bit more annoying, but compared to what could have and had been, it was nothing I, and by extension the crew, couldn't manage. I'm proud of them for that. To share the indomitable will of humanity, and as before that itch is refusing to leave me. I still feel the tendrils searching for me from the dark. The clicking of the envoy moors, the teeth, the anger. And where's the bloody cold correspondent? Arriving at the station, I would have been more than happy to delegate this work, but no one seemed all too eager to deal with husks outside of myself and the doctor. Delegating work to recraft our ammunition supply to our assistant who made an appointment while I was exercising self-restraint with a clown. She possessed none. A matter that did make me laugh in all of this. A refreshing rarity these days if it isn't caused by violence. Either way, this was a job for myself. I had to make a point and investigate. I got the ropes that I had absolutely legally acquired, as did the doctor, and headed inside ahead of him. I would not have him exposed to needless risks. Inside was a view I could only describe as an affront to a scientific method. Cultists, fancying themselves scientists, attempted symbiosis ascension by any means necessary without any procedure, decorum, or method. The one conducting it all, some no-name upstart, apparently heard of a correspondent at least, and proudly proclaimed that he had seen to his ascension. The good doctor, being prepared as he is, said something special for me. Exquisite new combat stims, cracking open a bottle of rum to pretend hospitalities as he administered the doses that briefly de-escalated the situation. But I could not stand the self-absorbed righteous nonsense of the man that had impeded our vision for progress. And as the meds took effect and the world became a black and white, a haze all over, with my vision being set on the heat of bodies and pumping of her blood, I smiled. The world was unstable, shaking at the seams. My vision could be no more blurrier than it was, but all my other senses screamed positions and actions at me that would finally answer the question the Charybdis posed. Between a lifetime and a hair's breadth, which lasts longer at the face of the abyss? And the abyss wears many faces, and now it wore mine. I put a bullet through the idiot's cranium first, which sent his assistants into a panicked rage, opening fire at me. I've had enough. And besides, I didn't need to make an example. So shut every damn buffoon back to the hell from which they tried to crawl. My existence is no longer required, especially with them having murdered my contact. If it was anyone else, I would have been scared of the surgical and clinical removal of all living creatures from the station. But it is I, and I hold myself to the standard. The stims made my focus razor sharp, and if I did not make use of it, it would be a waste of resources. And blasted, it felt good, watching the cranium of the ill-guided bloom into a crimson flower on the wretched metal floor, walls, and doors, as the husks skitter in futile attempts to lunge at me as tens of bullets fired in chains pushing them back. I rejoiced in the dismemberment of their forms, to cut off every limb with the axe in my hand after they stopped moving from the hellfire of bullets. I drank deep the wretched smell of slaughter, brine and blood, and when I felt the itching in my throat and the fever return as one of them fired Prandex into my system to the syringe gun, I simply laughed, with a rasp, as I felt my vocal cords being eaten. I administer antibiotics mid-run while returning fire, a mad berserker from old Earth tales, but no Valkyries will carry me to Valhalla should I ever surrender. Ah, dancing on the edge can be so very freeing and exhilarating. As the infection refused to die down, as the last of the station found its end, and nothing appeared on my thermos anymore, I self-administer Silicynide. The day of symbiosis hasn't come yet, and I still need my cognitive functionality and voice. Amidst it all, I found evidence as to why the church has been unresponsive outside of the blatant and frankly unnecessary death of the ecclesiarch that had mostly seemed to work with me. There was an uptake of extremists, newcomers that didn't understand nuance, work, and due process that caused severe internal struggles within the scientific circle. This is what happens when you leave men not made for talking in charge of the movement. Understand my role as does the doctor his, and goodness they could use a face that isn't currently painted as an extreme criminal. At least on the corpse of my contracts was meant to potentially reach someone deeper within organization. Finally, some progress. The information I had to make disappear before a coalition reclaimed the station. Upon my return, my crew had successfully restocked our mission, through which we had been burning through at rapid pace. At least the way to the separate station was uneventful routine. Sure, some mud raptors here, a school of golden hammerheads there, and Arch's bindings giving us trouble, but at this point, this was the norm, not the exception. Well, one exception, my lovely chief engineer has found himself challenged by ladders and complains of a blunt force trauma suffered from the ice breaking. When we arrived, a few of the crew had to step out for a moment. Namely, our engineer had excused himself for maintenance on Diana and to recuperate from the damages suffered, while the assistant had run off somewhere, leaving myself, the good doctor, and the clown-cum-technician behind. Quickly, it would be just me and the clown, as the genius had some preliminary research to conduct before he returned to Binsmith. Clearly, the technician saw this as some golden opportunity to torment me. Between quartermaster work and drafting up letters to both the military benefactors and potential cult contact, I warned him several times, but he refused to listen. Well, I too have been busy. I've been working on getting a safe supply of sufferine. Carrying out my duties, followed by the clown, we found ourselves near the break. He was well aware that I would love to throw him in and be done with it, and he was toying with the notion. But then, and I could only describe it as a temporal hiccup, he was stuck in an in-between state of door and jail. The absurdity of it. I could not hold my laughter. The mangled form of a clown man, his arms locked into the metal frame, the door slamming open and shut without bedewing, where I could clearly see him sit in quiet silence in the padded cell. I was lost for a moment as I realized that his screams became a bit too panicked, and I released him from the bond. Kinetic potential, which had built up, threw him back hard in all that physical trauma to his form realized into the now. Positively, he was almost dead, and I did allow myself an indulgence. Some may call it sadistic. Perhaps it is. I cannot. I check his vitals with my advanced syringe gun. Yes, indeed, major blunt force trauma. His legs and arms are crushed. The first shot in it loaded, however, isn't morphine, but sufferine. Administer a quick and silent dose, same breath, swap the barrels, and administer a first shot of morphine. Success. He noticed nothing. But since his muling, our pain still continues, and I did once respect the man, I administer a second dose. Call it luck or professional attendance. Now he was also severely relapsing into his opiate addiction. The perfect cover-up. I explained the situation to him, stifling my laughter at the image still with me from his pain thrashing, and expect that I'll be grabbing naloxone to counteract the effects. Leaving him behind, I just hear his panic overcomes as the claustrophobic hallways of a violent assault become utterly dark to him. How he feels horrible and experiencing shortness of breath. By the time I make it back, his heart had already stopped. Oh, what a shame. The short-term memory loss of his return was fueled by a disbelief of his hands no longer working as finely as before when dealing with wires. Fine then, I did overindulge and I'm maintaining the rouse. I handed him his paycheck of 1,000 mark from the last few contracts he assisted with in a bookshop style you catch him back up to his previous point, when he is sent to craft me more nuclear bombs. I've become deaf in many ways, and this was just one of many instruments I played. With that, we are ready to depart. The doctor points out that he requires tools from Winsmith. Very well. Our next target is in sight, and some similar contracts on the way almost got us there safely. If it wasn't for the clown welding me in while I was writing down names and places I had to seek out there. I caught him in the act and enacted quick disciplinary measures and immediate first aid. However, I had not realized he also welded my access to the armory shut. This would have almost cost us mission lives and another bloody reset if I didn't have my boarding axe with me, as we once again were sent plummeting from a Moloch attack. Thankfully, the worst could be prevented, but now whatever tinge of remorse tried to build my throat like bile over the murder of a clown earlier was gone. Such risks to the mission will not, no, cannot be tolerated, and remorse is a kindness I will no longer entertain henceforth. Not that I ever entertained it much. Once we arrive, I immediately step out following the delegation of work. I head off to hand over my letters. Thankfully, Binsmith has somewhat capable gathering of scientists that are part of the church, and while the doctor's locked away to his research, I rub hands and elbows with a trained smile on my face. A pleasant voice, and enough alcohol to knock out a hammerhead. The end result is this: 2 husk containers and an address. The containers are an early result of symbiosis attempts with non-organic bond body, or short-lived. They are loyal to whoever feeds them, but husks first and foremost. For our needs, the pair will be useful. I have handed one over to the doctor as a present and to study, while another one of the critters I kept for myself. In their disturbing physiology, I do find them endearing. And if only I could get the bloody thing to eat. It took me 2 hours to figure out how. It is a shy creature. If believed and perceived, it will not refuse food. During this, the technician, or what's left of him, retired to the medical bay. I still pay for his bills and treatments. I'm not a monster, despite common belief amongst parts of the crew and separatist swine. With just the doctor and I left, I have sent him a message to inquire about any updates, and indeed, he did have some. I informed him, of course, of a little present. He seemed pleasantly surprised, and that if all goes well, I finally have news from the corp of the morning. Then the doctor told me that he remembered what I had stated yesterday. All our combat today had yielded enough samples and material for him to synthesize the first half of his quartz splice. Mantis and Crawler were both refined to the same standard applied to my own, and with a quick demonstration the ship returned to normality. The good doctor outrunning me in every circumstance. While I have my moments of megalomania, I suffer no such illusions. It is good to know him at my side, and now he will be back quicker. He also took this moment to inform me that, should I require further toxin testing on the crew for my own research in biochemical warfare, he had means to prolong their suffering. I mean, vitals. To gather extended data and to prevent lethality to come to fruition in this moment of time. A useful skill he has found himself with, and I'm sure he would explain how if I asked. And I would likely need at least a week to even grasp the science behind it, so I will not waste either of our time. And thus, after more maintenance work, I retire to my chambers. Tomorrow we must seek out a military fortification. Our munition stock and resource to make more are running dangerously low. Then, whatever I hear from the cult, and if it is nothing, I will disassemble another one of our hideouts. If it isn't abundantly clear yet, I have had enough. Enough indeed. The wires are set. At least tonight I'll find rest without a fever. I've adjusted well to the changes. Whatever nightmares lurk, they are comparably, indescribably small to the reality I call my own with today's revelations. My work isn't done, and until it is, I'll make true to the monster of my sleep. I will never let go.